Hi there, and welcome to another Mickey's Roundtable adventure where I explore everything Disney, one themed adventure at a time. My last episode, I followed in Walt Disney's footsteps out in Los Angeles. For this episode, I followed in my own footsteps over the last 5 years and beyond. Everything from being a world traveler flight attendant stroke victim to being a marathon running Walt Disney World cast member. You're not going to want to miss this very personal Mickey's Roundtable adventure. So May 15th, 2023 was the 5th anniversary of my first official day as a Disney cast member. I celebrated that by going out to Disneyland out in California, kind of where this whole idea of working at Disney and Walt Disney World started. I was in town square there, and who should I happen to run across but Pluto. Now Pluto is significant because, well, they'll give you certificates or a little pin for your name tag or whatever with different characters on it. And for the 5-year mark, for the 5-year anniversary, you will get a Pluto pin with a little 5 on it. And they gave me a certificate. 5 years, congratulations. So I brought that with me, and there was Pluto walking through town square, and I said, hey, can I get a photo? And I pulled out my certificate. So I got a fantastic photo of myself with Pluto in front of the fire station in Walt's apartment. When I got back, it was the anniversary of my first official training day on the job training at the Caribbean Beach Resort. So I thought, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go to the Caribbean Beach Resort where it all started and make my way through all of the different locations, attractions, jobs that I worked. That's exactly what I did. Of course, it didn't start at Caribbean Beach. My story goes back a little bit further back than that. Moving to Florida and getting a job at Walt Disney World was never like a big dream of mine when I was a kid or anything like that. First time I ever went to Walt Disney World wasn't until I was 18, just out of high school. My twin brother and our parents headed down and we visited, and I enjoyed it and I liked it a lot, but it wasn't something, boy, I want to do this. Just out of high school was about the time, or when I was in high school, when I started working for my dad. He was a water well driller, and primarily he cemented up, sealed up old water wells. I worked with him for about 30 years, between 1980s and just a couple years ago. My true passion, my true love is travel. I love to travel, I love to explore, I love a good road trip. If I'm in a car for more than 5 minutes, I want to just keep going. Ultimately, I never wanted to take over the family business. It was a means to an end. It helped my dad out in keeping his business small, but it helped me out, affording me the opportunity to travel. But it wasn't something that I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. So in 2008, I went and got a job at Masaba Airlines as a flight attendant, regional airline. I got to go overseas. I got to travel around the world. I got to watch the sunrise from the summit of Mount Fuji and the sunset over the Nile River Valley in Egypt. That was like the last big trip that I took, was out to Egypt. I got to go to the Valley of the Kings, and I looked King Tut straight in the eye. You know, you can go into his tomb, and the curse is real, by the way. Yeah, that was November 17th, 2017. January 28th, 2018, a little over 2 months later, I was home from work, and so they took me out and they put me in an ambulance, and I thought, okay, you know, we're going to take him down to the hospital and check him out and make sure everything's okay. And I'm in the back of the ambulance, and we're driving along, and just nice and easy, nice and slow. My brother's in the car behind following. And they're doing all the various checks that you do. You know, they've got a blood pressure cuff on you and shine a little light in your eyes. And, you know, they're, okay, touch your nose, wiggle your ears. Okay, follow my finger. So they're doing this, and I'm following with my finger, and all of a sudden everything got blurry, just like that. Immediately, the sirens went on. They're on the phone, inbound, possible stroke. So I was admitted to the hospital, and then they, of course, start in with the questions. Do you know where you are? Do you know what day of the week it is? Well, I was a flight attendant. I normally didn't know the answers to those questions. In all, I was in the hospital 2 nights, but it only amounted to probably less than 36 hours. Yes, I had had a stroke. It's like, okay, wow. Which is what I told my work, told the airline, and they said, well, you can't come back to work unless you get a note from a doctor, until you get a note from your doctor. Well, I wasn't able to get an appointment from the doctor's office for another 3 months. What do I do for 3 months? Did I mention I like to travel? Nobody ever told me that I couldn't drive anywhere, so I did just that. The idea of driving Route 66 never had a whole lot of appeal for me, but I had plenty of time, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go drive Route 66. Starts in Chicago, winds its way out west all the way out to Los Angeles, California, and the Santa Monica Pier. So one of the things that I like about travel, one of the things that I like to do when I travel, well, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. A lot of people call it the travel bug. For me, it's more specifically what I like to call OCTD, obsessive compulsive travel disorder. And basically what that means is I can't just go to one national park. I have to go to all of them. I can't just go to one state capital or one state fair or whatever it happens to be. I got to do all of them. And I'll kind of do like I do with my videos here. I pick a topic, pick a theme, pick a category, and then I try to cover everything relating to it. And so I did just that on my Route 66 trip, visiting all of the various Route 66 icons and landmarks. But what I also decided to do, I had wanted to visit Walt Disney historic sites. So Walt Disney was born in Chicago, where Route 66 ends on the one end on the eastern terminus, and then it ends in Los Angeles, where of course he spent lots of time, and there's a lot of different sites. So I did the entire length of Route 66 and included all the various Walt Disney historic sites that I could as I traveled. And then on the way home, I did the same thing. I visited Kansas City and Marceline and things like that as well. Because of all of the Walt Disney things that I was planning on seeing and was seeing, I thought I'll include Disneyland on my trip, on my itinerary. And so while I was there, I decided I would do the Walking in Walt's Disneyland Footsteps tour. I loved it. It was fantastic. That's kind of where the inspiration came from for me to say, yeah, you know what? I should go work at Disney. So after I got back from Route 66, it was time for my doctor's appointment. And, well, how do I put this nicely? Instead of doc, I got dopey. Yeah, his letter that said I could go back to work, he says, Roger can go back to work as a flight attendant, comma, but I don't know. I didn't know what that meant. My work didn't know what that meant. So I wasn't really back to work. But apparently the insurance company knew what that meant, because they stopped sending me money that I was getting. I couldn't get a hold of the doctor's office to try and clarify the letter that he had written. So that dragged on a little bit, and I kind of got it stuck in my head that, yeah, I'm going to go to Florida and get a job at Walt Disney World anyway. So why don't I just do it sooner rather than later? So I quit my job as a flight attendant, went in and turned in my official employee ID and airport access badge and all of that. I had gone onto the interweb and applied at the Disney Jobs website. And then it dawned on me that the job that I applied for was a bus driver. They make a little bit more money. They were doing signing bonuses. I already had a CDL from working with my dad. So I was like, okay, this is a good fit, except rules and regulations. No, you can't drive a commercial vehicle for a whole year if you've had a stroke, and that's what I had officially been diagnosed with. Now, it turned out that my older brother and his wife were moving down to Florida as well, and so they were going to be hauling a bunch of stuff down and wanted some help and an extra driver, and I wasn't working at the time, so I helped them move some of their stuff down, and then my brother loaned me his truck, and so I went to Walt Disney World and visited Magic Kingdom, but then I also stopped by the casting office so that I could actually talk to a person in person. And I told them what my situation was. I said, I applied for a job that I can't do. How do we work around this, or can we change it? And they said, nope, sorry, you have to wait 6 months and then reapply. So I went back to Minnesota and I got some temporary jobs, some part-time jobs, just to earn money while I was waiting for that time that I would be able to reapply at Disney. I got a temp job working at a place called Factory Motor Parts Warehouse. And it was just a warehouse job, stocking shelves and whatnot. You know how there's always a guy or a gal that decides they're gonna play the radio really loud because they think everybody wants to hear what they want to listen to? Yeah, we had one of those there. And so the radio's playing and I'm going by with my cart full of motor parts and starters and whatever I've got on my cart. And on the radio comes an ad for Valley Fair Amusement Park. They're hiring. If I'm gonna go work at Walt Disney World in Florida, maybe I could get a job working at the local amusement park and see whether I like it or not. So I applied at Valley Fair, got hired there. Saw an ad on Craigslist for Life Touch Studios. They do like student photos, student portraits, pictures, whatever. And so I'm out for my walk, and as acorns were falling on my head, it is fall after all. See, look at this. They're all over the place, lots of oak trees. Anyway, so they called me, and so basically it kind of became an over the phone interview, which was very nice. I didn't have to dress up, and I got to walk through the woods at the same time. Anyway, so she says, yeah, we start training on Monday. So I did that part-time for a while. Fall, November 2018, did my last photo shoot, and I packed up what I could into my truck, and I headed out of there. I ran away from home to go live at Walt Disney World. I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't have a place to stay. Finally made it down to Florida. I'm at the Florida Welcome Center. They do it right here. You can actually get off the freeway and get your picture next to the welcome sign and not have to worry about getting hit by a car or truck or a motorcycle. And so anyway, so it took me, I left last Friday evening, so it took me a little over, not quite 8 days. And then Monday morning, then I'm gonna go into the Disney casting office and see about a job. There's a million different things that you can do down at Disney World. So my brother back in Minnesota, he was working, I think he still does this, he works doing deliveries. It's kind of like DoorDash or Uber, Lyft, that kind of thing, but it's package delivery called Dispatch. So I did that, I signed up for it, and then I was doing deliveries all over the Orlando area. It was not the best for the vehicle, and I was making enough money to get by. I lived at a campground, Bill Frederick Park at Turkey Lake. That was nice, but I only did that for about a month or so. Went down and visited my brother for Thanksgiving, came back up, got to finally interview at Disney in person, went and sat down and talked to a person. So then I was finally able to reapply, and this time instead of a bus driver position, I applied to be watercraft. They've got the ferries that go in Seven Seas Lagoon. While I was waiting to hear back from Disney, I continued to do the dispatch deliveries around town. I went and got myself a rented room. It was just me and my sleeping bag and ground pad, and had very little stuff. Most of my stuff was still back up in Minnesota. And then I got a little part-time job. I found, you know, the guys that stand on the corner flipping signs. And I was able to do a job where it was just like a few blocks away from where I lived. I'd stand on the corner and flip signs on the weekend, and then during the week I would drive the dispatch. So as I was doing deliveries, driving around Disney property, heading through Disney to get to wherever I needed to go. January 2019, I'm driving along and they're setting up porta potties and tables and different things, medical tents. It's like, what's this? Oh, the Walt Disney World Marathon is coming up in just in that weekend. And I thought, you know what? I should run the marathon. Show that doctor a thing or two. I'll run a marathon and show myself a thing or two, and I'll get back into shape, get into shape. It was already too late to get in on that, but I thought, I'll do it the next year, but I won't do the full marathon. I'll just do the 5K, and then I'll do the 10K, and then I'll do the half marathon, and then I'll do the full marathon over the course of 4 years. I started training, running around my neighborhood and keeping track of my running and my steps and my mileage and all of that. While I was waiting on Disney to officially give me the word that, yes, you're hired, I flew back to Minnesota and my brother helped me load all of my crap into his van. Like I said, he was doing the delivery service up in Minnesota, so he had a great big delivery van. I've had heavier loads. Yeah, it's not bad. Oh, there's nothing. There's nothing. So we were able to fit everything in there that I wanted, needed, except for my little tree. That got left behind for some reason. Ended up getting it eventually. Anyway, so my brother and I drove down to Florida with his van, and then we moved all my crap up into my room and into the closet, and yeah, that's basically how I had it. It was just a room filled with crap and my bed, and I was basically living in a storage locker for the time being, but you know, the rent was really good, and I was on the cusp of getting my job at Walt Disney World. Finally heard back from Disney. Took them about 3 months before they finally called me up and said, congratulations, you're hired. This was the watercraft position, but since it was transportation, I needed to go back and see a doctor and have a physical. Because of my medical history, they told me, yeah, sorry, you can't do watercraft, but don't worry, we'll find another job for you, which they did. After another 2 months of waiting for them to get back to me, they said, we've got a job for you, part-time Caribbean Beach Bell Services, which I said, sure, I'll do that. Gets my little pinky toe in the door. Shortly after that, then May 15th, 2019, over a year after I applied, I was finally, officially, a Walt Disney World cast member. All right, so that's the backstory for how I got my job at Walt Disney World. So that was my first stop on my retracing my footsteps around Walt Disney World adventure, Caribbean Beach, but more specifically at Bell Services. A few things had changed. They changed where the bell stand was, but one of the things that was still the same was a couple of the cast members that were there that I used to work with, so I got to chat with them for a little while and catch up. Then I headed over to they've got a little quick service restaurant there at Caribbean Beach. All of the resorts have something like that. So I stopped and I had a little breakfast before I headed on the rest of my journey. So from the Caribbean Beach Resort, I headed over to Epcot. January 2020 was my first Disney race, the official Disney Marathon weekend. Like I said earlier, I wasn't going to do the full marathon. I was just going to do the 5K. And it was a good way to introduce myself to an organized race, to a Disney event. You head over to ESPN, Wide World of Sports, and you sign in, and you get your bib, and you get a shirt and all of that. And then the morning of the race, you do your run. In the run for the 5K, it's so short, it only goes through the one park. So I knocked off my first Run Disney event. Kind of interesting, I had just received the quarterly award for unbelievable services at Caribbean Beach, and a week later I was gone. I was going to be transferring from part-time at Bell Services at Caribbean Beach to full-time monorails. The way monorails work, when you transfer in, you'll work the platform first. You will be trained as basically kind of a conductor role, help guests on and off the monorail. You put up little ramps for the guests with ECVs or wheelchairs. And so you do that for a period of time, 3-4 months. Ultimately, everyone that works at the monorail has to be trained as a driver as well. So eventually, you do need to train to be a monorail driver, and I got to do that. And it was very, very cool driving that monorail around the Epcot loop or heading back towards Magic Kingdom and the fireworks are going off. It was very cool. And at the same time, it was probably the most stressful 2 weeks of my life. It was not for me. And I decided, no, I don't want to continue on with the process. So the last day, the assessment day, I said, no, I'm not going to do that day. Let me transfer somewhere else. There was a Bell Services job part-time again at the Grand Floridian Hotel. Okay, that wouldn't be bad. And then they had 2 outdoor vending positions, one at Animal Kingdom and one at Magic Kingdom. That would have been a lot closer to where I lived, and it was a little bit more money. And I thought, okay, I'll do the Magic Kingdom outdoor vending job. Timing is everything, right? So the day they approved my transfer out of monorails over to outdoor vending at Magic Kingdom was the same day they announced that, hey, guess what? We're closing the parks for an indeterminate amount of time due to COVID. And my twin brother back in Minnesota, well, he had planned a trip to Alaska. He's working on a movie, same movie that we worked on, years and years ago. He wants to remake it called Welcome to Alaska. And so he was going to go up there and scout, and his wife was going to go with him, but because of all the uncertainty and things going on, that wasn't going to work out for their plans. But he still had plane tickets and everything. And so he said, hey, you want to go up and instead of scouting locations, we'll make a short film. So we did that, and then we flew back down to Minnesota, and out in my parents' garage, we built a little set. The beautiful thing about parents that don't throw anything away, in 40 and 50, 60, 70 years, there's plenty of stuff to build sets and make sets out of. So we built this little cabin set, and we filmed in there, and that all turned out fantastically and beautifully. Again, got to spend a little bit more time with my parents and my brother. My brother and I, we have the same birthday. We were turning 50 years old. We ended up taking some pictures, the obligatory, hey, family photos, and we got a picture of my brother and myself on the couch with my dad and blowing out the candles and the whole thing. And that was really, really nice, and I would not have had that if it wasn't for COVID. So after the park started to reopen, people were getting their callbacks, including me. But I wasn't going back to an old job, I was going to a new job at outdoor vending. So for my retracing my footsteps day at the parks, I headed over to Magic Kingdom on the monorail, and I got myself a Mickey ice cream sandwich. Those are always my favorite, much better than the Mickey bars. In January 2021, I was getting kind of tired of sharing a place with 3 other guys living in basically a storage locker. And there was an apartment that I really liked, and I did some math and figured out how much money I was making. And I said, all right, I'm going to do it. So I went and I moved into a little 1-bedroom apartment and loved it. Short drive to work, really nice layout. I love the layout of that apartment. It was also that same time period, January, when the Walt Disney World Marathon weekend is. They decided not to have the races, not in person anyway. They did them as a virtual race. I ran through Celebration, which was right next door to where my apartment was at. So I didn't want to handle food or money. And so as soon as I was allowed to, I put in a transfer request out of outdoor vending to Adventureland Liberty Square attractions with the hope that I would be able to work at the world famous Jungle Cruise. I really, really love the Jungle Cruise. It is such a fantastic attraction. And then as a cast member that likes performing and putting themselves out there and telling jokes, it's a really great attraction.
The dock, which means we are underway. Gungalution, welcome aboard the world famous Jungle Cruise. We are world famous for being famous around the world. Here you'll find adventure, romance, and mystery. Tropical rivers silently flow into the unknown. The eerie sound of the jungle with eyes always watching. I'm now world famous. My name's Skipper Roger. I'll be your host and guide for the next 50 days as we explore these jungles of the world. We begin in the Amazon rainforest, where it does rain 365 days out of the year. That's almost every single day. Now, the large amounts of rainfall accounts for
I don't know what to say about it other than it was really, really great. I really enjoyed it. But I had an affinity for the riverboat as well. I wanted to work over there. And so I put in you can put yourself on a cross-training list. So once you train at one attraction, you can put yourself on a list to train somewhere else. and they go through the people, and when they get down to you, you get to train there. And once you've trained there, you can work that attraction as well as the other one that you worked. And you can work multiple attractions within the same area. So I got to work at the riverboat and at the Jungle Cruise. I must like boats or something, I'm not sure. But I tell people the riverboat has my heart, but the Jungle Cruise has my soul. And I think that's true. And then it turned out that my very last day of training on the riverboat was also Mickey's birthday. It was the anniversary of Steamboat Willie coming out. So that was kind of neat. Then I had my assessment, passed my assessment, and got to work on the riverboat ever since. I also put myself on the cross-training list for the Hall of Presidents. They share a break space and are right next door to the riverboat. And I have always, since elementary school anyway, had an interest in presidential history. I mentioned my OCTD. One of the things that I've done as I've traveled is visiting presidential historic sites, birthplaces, graves, libraries, you name it. And so I would have been doing myself a huge disservice if I didn't try and work at the Hall of Presidents. I trained there, I assessed there, I passed the assessment, I was proficient, but as it turned out, I never worked a single shift there. But on my little adventure, exploring and retracing my footsteps, I did all three of those attractions. I stopped by the Jungle Cruise and did a trip around the river there, rode on the Liberty Bell riverboat around the rivers of America, and then caught a show at the Hall of Presidents. So January of 2022, I ran the half marathon, longer and further than I had ever run before, running through Celebration, making sure, yeah, I can do this, I can run that far in one stretch. And that was interesting because it's a much longer race than the 5K. The 10K was on my own, but so the half marathon, you start in Epcot, and then you run to Magic Kingdom, and that's a cool race to do. If I was to do one again, I might do the half marathon again, but you get to run through the castle and through Magic Kingdom, and then you head back down and through Epcot, and then you finish at the Epcot parking lot. And that was interesting because it was, I don't want to say it was easy, but it wasn't as difficult as I was expecting it to be. So I must have been doing something right as far as training goes, because yeah, it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be, and really, really enjoyed it. So that April, my brother called me from back in Minnesota. My dad had gone into the hospital. Yeah, that weekend, my dad passed away. And it hit me hard, and it still does. But yeah, so I flew back to Minnesota, helped with my mom and helped my brother. My dad, well, he was a collector, you know, so I've got obsessive compulsive travel disorder. He had obsessive compulsive tractor disorder or something. He had old cars and trucks and tractors, and he had been a well driller for, 50 plus years. He was in his 80s when he passed away, and so there was a lot of old pipe and machinery and all kinds of things that needed to be cleared out and taken care of. A lot to do, so I went up there for that. We decided not to have the funeral for my dad right away. We waited a few months until fall when we could get the whole family together. So I did end up going back to Minnesota for that. We took all kinds of trips with the whole family every year, like clockwork. We would take a trip up to Grand Rapids, Minnesota, in the old car show and swap meet. This is a picture that I drew when I was in preschool, kindergarten. My family. That's Mike sitting at the table. I don't know how well you can see it there. Rodney and I are playing in the fire. Ken's hiding from my mom. She's chasing him. Who knows what antics he's up to. Over here on the end, my dad. He's carrying firewood, not just a bundle of sticks or some logs. He's got a whole tree. This is how I saw my dad when I was in kindergarten, preschool. That's how I looked up to my dad when I was a little boy. Strong, What a neat thing to look up to your dad that way. As neat as it was to look up to my dad for his strength when I was a little boy, as I got older, I saw him for more than just his physical strength. I saw him as patient and kind. He did not envy or boast. He was not proud, always protected, always trusted. It's a blessing beyond words that I look up to him today the same way. I returned to Florida and continued to work at the riverboat and occasionally at the world-famous Jungle Cruise. Something else that I've loved ever since I was very, very young was trains. So I thought it would be cool to work on the Walt Disney World Railroad. Unfortunately, that had been closed down for about 4 years, a little over 4 years, while they were building a Tron roller coaster in Tomorrowland. It was right over the railroad tracks, and so they shut down the railroad while they were working on that new attraction. And so I was biding my time for when that reopened. I was going to put in a transfer and go work on the Walt Disney World Railroad. When they officially announced that they were starting to retrain railroad cast members, I immediately put in a transfer request to Main Street Operations. Most of my time, I was getting shifts at the riverboat. Once you go to the riverboat, it was rare that you would ever get a Jungle Cruise shift. And so my last week of working at Ad Lib attractions, Adventureland Liberty Square attractions, I did not get any Jungle Cruise shifts. I wanted one because, I love the attraction, and I love being a flight attendant too. And when I was a flight attendant, the last trip that I ever worked, the last flight that I ever worked, I never knew that was my last flight until well after the fact. And I didn't want that to be the case for Jungle. And somebody had a little nice, beautiful 6-hour shift at the Jungle Cruise, and I was able to trade with them and got to work my last shift at the Jungle Cruise. Yeah, I got to just be a skipper and got to do my thing. And the best part was the very last trip around the river. Coordinator comes over and says, this is your last trip. So I knew I was gonna have to knock it out of the park, give it my all, and enjoy it one last time. Little did I know, one of the skippers, before he loaded my boat, he told all of the guests that, hey, Roger's really good at this, and you're in for a real treat, and this is his last trip. And he got them all worked up.
Miles of it, we got this in the front of water, and if you look at the right angle, you'll see the side of water. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure, it's my privilege to present you the eighth wonder of the world. Once again, you can't unsee it. It is the backside of water! And if you are impressed by that later on, we might see the bottom of water.
I got back and there was all this cheering and just, it was fantastic. It was a great way to end. Since the trains weren't open yet, but they needed cast members for when it did open, while we were waiting on the trains, they trained us at Main Street Operations, doing parades. You would escort the horse-drawn trolleys with the Dapper Dans on there. You would do flag retreat. That was one of my favorite parts of working Main Street USA, was the flag retreat ceremony. They would have an honored representative of the armed forces, former or current military. I got to shake the hand of a Tuskegee Airman the one time. That was a real treat and a real honor to be part of that ceremony. I also trained at the Town Square Theater, where they've got the Mickey meet and greet. I never worked a shift there, which I'm kind of glad of because I didn't really want to. So as part of my day of retracing my steps, I went and watched the Festival of Fantasy Parade there at Main Street USA. I went and met Mickey at the Town Square Theater. I watched flag retreat ceremony. year, 2023, I moved into my luxurious apartment that I'm in now. It's smaller than my other place, but the rent is about the same. And to renew the lease at my old apartment, it was going to go up like $200 or $300 more. And plus, this is much more convenient for getting to work. So I continued to train. I had done my 5K and my 10K and my half marathon. Now was the time for the full marathon. I was able to sign up for it, and I got a spot. And yeah, it was all right. I did the half marathon. It wasn't as difficult as I was expecting it, but a full marathon, that's twice as long. So I have just passed the starting line of the 2023 Walt Disney World Marathon. So we ran through Epcot earlier, and now I'm just entering Magic Kingdom. This is backstage. Just in front of me is actually where I used to work at ODV, outdoor vending. All right, so this is mile marker 13 here. So just about the halfway point. So this is the longest I've ever run, ever. I ran the half marathon last year, and then a month ago I ran on a couple of different days. I ran 2 half marathons with a day of rest in between, but here on out, it's brand new territory. One of the things that I decided to do before I ran the race, and this is just like a few weeks or maybe a month or so, when I was out running and training leading up to the race, I remembered that my dad had talked about having dreams where he could run. Now, from the time he was a little boy until the rest of his life, he had asthma. Now, he couldn't run, but he was certainly athletic. He was in track and field. He did the shot put. He played football and he wrestled. And the stories that you would hear about him was that he was a powerhouse. He was incredibly strong. And so he was athletic in those ways, but not as far as running. I decided I would dedicate my run today to him. And so I grabbed my lanyard. This is from when I worked as a flight attendant, and I've got a picture in here. This is so when I went up to Minnesota when Disney was closed for that 4 months, and I helped my brother with his movie, and then we celebrated our birthday. We took that picture. It was my brother, myself, and my mom and my dad, and didn't know it then, but that's the last picture that I have with my dad. And then I put this one on the back too. When I was a kid, just a toddler, for Halloween we'd dress up, and he'd dress up as Superman, and he was a Superman. So anyway, I'm only halfway done. I got the rest of this thing to go.
She did not believe she could, but we believed in you.
What else? Oh, and then so I've been waiting, working on Main Street USA, doing parades and stuff, waiting for the train to open. The train just reopened just a couple weeks ago, just before Christmas, and nobody will tell you when you're going to get trained to be a conductor and whatnot. Well, this morning, like 2 a.m., whatever it was when I woke up, I looked at my schedule for next week, which just dropped this morning, and next week, provided I complete the training, I'm going to be trained in as a Walt Disney World conductor. So I got to be a conductor on the Walt Disney World Railroad, and that was a fun job. When I ride the train to this day, when I go over there, that is a job that I kind of miss. It's a much more complicated operation than the riverboat is, but really fun job nonetheless. Similar to how the monorail worked, you can work as a conductor, just working the platform, but then you can work as an engineer as well. You have to work as a conductor first before you can become an engineer. Unlike the monorail, where you have to work both, you could work just being a conductor if you wanted to, or once you train as an engineer, you just work as an engineer. I wasn't sure if I wanted to work as an engineer or not. I thought, I'll let fate decide. I had applied for a VIP tour guide and for guest relations, which is where you work at Magic Kingdom if you wanted to lead those tours like I wanted to do, since I had taken that Walking in Walt's Disneyland Footsteps tour. And I got an email from both of them on the same day that said, yeah, sorry, we're looking at other candidates. Try again sometime. So I said, okay, I'm not doing that. I guess, hey, might as well try being a train engineer. What's the worst that could happen? Failure? It was difficult for me. There's a lot going on and a lot of things that you have to be pretty proficient at right away. Driving was fun. I loved driving the train. And then when the riverboat would come by, I got to play whistle tag with the riverboat. Now, I still picked up shifts at the riverboat, so occasionally then I would get to play whistle tag back from both ends. I loved working on the train, but the train didn't love working with me, so to speak. As you're driving the train, there's a throttle, there's a bar, and you gotta pull on it, and depending on the locomotive, they're all slightly different. You gotta really be pulling all the time, and you're always adjusting it. And I started to develop, I don't know if you can see it in the shot there, I got these hard lumps right on my elbows. And they weren't painful or anything, but I'd feel them, there'd be a little tweak there, and I thought, okay, I don't think I should be doing this. So I knew that I had to get out of it. I still had my proficiencies at the riverboat because I still picked up shifts there once in a while. I got to drive a train and I got to do all of that cool stuff. And but I was now back where I really feel at home. To me, working at the riverboat, I liken it to hanging out with a group of friends, but instead of going out for a beer or pizza or going to see a movie or something, you play riverboat all day and you take turns steering and that kind of thing. I love the attraction, and I love the rivers of America and Liberty Square and Frontierland, and it is a happy place. It's a laughing place. So I did all of those things on my footsteps, walking in my own footsteps tour, headed over and took the train, rode on the riverboat. The one thing that I had not done in my retracing my footsteps day was the fireworks. I trained to work fireworks. I never worked a shift, thankfully. So I concluded my big anniversary celebration, retracing my footsteps tour there at Walt Disney World, Magic Kingdom, and watched the fireworks. So at the start of the video, I talked about meeting Pluto at Disneyland there in front of the Disneyland fire station in Town Square. That was so unexpected and so cool and such a fantastic moment. And there's a lot of that working at Disney. There's some ups and downs and things, but there's a lot of ups and moments with guests that I will never forget. And it's been a fun experience. Before I started, I posted on Facebook talking about it was like being on a roller coaster. I got hired and I'm like going up the steep hill, clickety clack, clickety clack, clickety clack. not knowing what was going to happen, not knowing what I was in store for. And it has been like a roller coaster ride. There's been ups and downs and unexpected twists and turns. And who knows what the next 5 years are going to bring for me. This was the last 5 years and before. But we'll see. Will I get a job at Guest Relations? Will I get to do Keys to the Kingdom tours? Maybe Magic Mind, our Steam Trains tour. I did used to be an engineer. Anyway, who knows what the future is going to bring. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed it enough that maybe you'll hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell. I guess that's how you get notifications that a new video has come out from a particular channel that you like. I hope you like this channel, and if you want to keep track of where my journey is taking me and what I'm doing, that's a good way to do it. So, until next time, this has been Mickey's Roundtable. We'll see you real soon.